Fisher Folks of Filey. Virtues and vices of crabs and lobsters. The rulers of Filey have no desire to enter into competition with their bigger neighbours at Scarborough and Bridlington in providing artificial attractions for visitors. Their ideal is perfect quietude. Natural beauty and an invigorating atmosphere form their stock in trade. Filey, in a sentence, is a health resort without temptations, a peaceful retreat for tired men of affairs, and it offers a safe playground by the sea for young children. Booms of any kind are alien to the spirit of the place. Some 4 years ago there was a building boom, but it was short-lived, and it is only within the last 12 months that the new houses then built are filling. A couple of years ago the inhabitants consented reluctantly to have the town boomed by a motor derby, the annual races of the Yorkshire Automobile Club, but the event proved more or less of a fiasco, and the residents and customary visitors to Filey sighed a sigh of relief when they heard the races were to be transferred to the Saltburn Sands. The population of 3,300 consists of 3 distinct classes. There are the retired professional and businessmen who have settled with their families in Filey for the sake of peace. There are the hotel and boarding house keepers, who number amongst their patrons many aristocrats and families of influence in art and commerce. And lastly, there is that most interesting section, the fisher folks. An old world stock with a good deal of Danish blood in their veins, they have retained through successive ages old world habits and superstitions. The situation of Filey, away from the main line of intercommunication between the great towns, and the nature of the fishing industry, have both tended to foster that exclusiveness which has preserved them as an antique race, quite distinct and different from other peoples. These fishermen, writes the Reverend A.N. Cooper, Vicar of Filey, the well-known walking parson, have no market to attend, and no Martinmas week where they are thrown into other company as the countrymen are, the consequence being that they intermarry among themselves to a far greater extent than other folks. They remain a fine stalwart race notwithstanding Sir John Lubbock's objection to cousinly marriages, and the number of people of weak intellect are no more than the average of the kingdom. It is no use asking for Mr. Kappelman, Mr. Camish, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Houston, Mr. Scales or Mr. Jenkinson among the fishermen of Filey, for nearly all the 300 men and boys who go to sea from Filey bear one of these names. Nor is it much more helpful in making inquiries to preface the Christian name John, Dick or Harry, as there are many Johns, Dicks and Harrys with the same surname in Filey. To avoid confusion, every fisher lad is given a nickname, which sticks to him through life. Some of these names are not very complimentary, and they all seem to originate from some merely casual remark or epithet. For instance, old George Scales, the coxswain of the Filey lifeboat, the new one, Holland 3, was launched a fortnight ago, is known as Dingle. One of the Jenkinsons is called Cush, another Craw, and a third of his family Walsher. The head of the big family of Robinsons answers quite naturally to the title of Leggett, while one of his nephews is always spoken of as Hobby. "How on earth did you come by the name of Leggett?" inquired the writer from Uncle Robinson. "Well, to tell the truth, mister," he replied, "I was very fond of apples when I was a young'un, and I didn't mind on whose trees they grew so long as I could get at 'em. One day I was up a tree when the owner comes in the garden. I bobs down like a squirrel and over the wall and off like a shot. A woman who sees me running telled the neighbours after that she seed me Leggett, and believe me, from that time to this I've been called nothing but Leggett." Among themselves the fishermen use a good deal of the East Yorkshire dialect, but as a rule with visitors they are more considerate. 20 years ago they made no discrimination, and the Reverend A.N. Cooper, then comparatively new to the district, was rather confused on inquiring from one of his parishioners the state of his health, to receive the reply, "I din't gan bon busking about like some on 'em, I stick to thief." by which he meant to convey that he didn't wander about and get into mischief, but stayed at home. Owing to the boisterous weather, the old fishermen of Filey have just experienced the worst 6 months for 23 years. "We've not averaged 5 shillings a man for the last 16 weeks, lamented one of them. "It's all right for them newspaper chaps to tell the public when we gets an odd big catch, but it's high time the public knew summat about our hard times. There's many on us got over £10 and £12 scratched up at the shops, and for bait. I bet there's summat tradespeople hundreds of pounds out, though they know they'll get it all back when the fine weather comes." "Aye, and now there's summat else nor fine weather wanted, mister," chimed in another fisherman. "We wants fish, and they don't have much chance with them steam trailers about. It isn't what they bring to market, it's what they destroy. I've seen 'em many a time shovelling spawn and little dead fish into the sea, and t' birds coming down and picking stuff up. They are all old world fishers at Filey. They are all old world fishers at Filey, and have a contempt for those innovations in the fishing industry which have done so much to increase the supply of fresh fish in the inland markets. The fishing craft of Filey consists of 24 yawls, each manned by 4 men and 2 boys, 2 herring boats and 24 cobbles. The yawls go as far as the Dogger Bank and generally land their catches of haddock and cod at Grimsby or Scarborough. The cobbles are engaged in crab fishing, each of the 24 boats looking after about 60 crab pots. The crab industry has not been quite so depressed as the ordinary line fishing, otherwise the amount of distress in this interesting fishing colony would have been even more serious. The generosity of these people to each other furnishes a striking object lesson. "It's true, mister," said one of them, "we sometimes swears and carries on like a lot of devils, but there's not one of us wants a meal of some sort as long as there's any grub among us. We's just now getting up a subscription for a poor fellow that lost his small boat and 2 topsails off his yawl last week in a gale on the Dogger Bank. We niver know when it'll be our turn to lose £40 worth of tackle, and we've nobbut one another to look to i' these times." The writer received a fascinating lesson on the virtues and vices of crabs and lobsters, illustrated by specimens, very much alive and kicking, from a bucketful which one of the company had just brought up from the beach. "You know, mister," said one of the experts, "a crab's like a bulldog when it gets on here. The harder you shakes it, the tighter it grips, and the only way to get loose is to wrench the claw right off. Now a lobster's same as a ground, it gives a good nip and then lets go." Dingle chimed in with a good crab story. The other day he had emptied his crab pots and had brought a fine collection on the beach, when up comes a fisher lad, who, after admiring them for a while, slipped a crab underneath his thick blue jersey. He was walking away when he suddenly set up a terrific yell and started frantically hammering his chest. The crab had got a claw round his fifth or some other rib. Help was forthwith coming, and the grip of iron relaxed. "That lad'll poach no more of my crabs," chuckled Dingle after a very diverting imitation of the gyrations of the young sufferer. End of article.